I am His Royal Highness Theophilus Moses Kenibara VII, the Amandabo of Mokoama in Sangana, in Akassa clan, Bayelsa State. Well, of course, the Portuguese visit to Akassa, it shows that there was an existence of a people called the Akassa people. So the Portuguese arrivals were far back 16th century. But before then, the Akassa man has been in existence. You know, you can't visit somewhere when people are not in existence. So the Akassa man has long, far back the 12 BC, was operated here in that highland, even before the advent of the discovery of River Niger, even advent of the white men here and there, and the Portuguese and the spinal people, you know, start doing the activities across the Niger. So Akassa has been in existence. They are never in existence because of the visit of the Portuguese. No. Anybody who tells you that Akassa become existence when the Portuguese or the Spain or the Spaniard people visited Akassa, that was when Akassa became existent. That is a blatant lie. Akassa has been in existence. In fact, from the history, Akassa was founded by a man called La. And the La who originated from this southern part of southern Egypt, who trespassed as a cultural person, who is a wealthy man that was looking for some kind of activities that will, create a lot of, increase in his bounds and harvest. So it started meandering the creeks of the river until he get to see where the Oginibiri Island is. And he felt that that was a very, very vast land where he can partook in his activities as a great farmer and as a fisherman. And so that was the origin of Akassa, as we were told, and then it was there, and that is why most time they call Opuo Akaha. Opuo Akaha is sometimes referred to the Oginibiri people, because when the founder started, it all started from Opuo Akaha. And so the historical capital of Akassa is the Oginibiri, vis-a-vis called the Opuo Akaha. And so that is where everything evolved. And then people from there crossed to the hinterland, crossed the river called the Ikpitibo, where you see several communities that lake around that area. You discover that you have the Minibie, you have the Okumuribela, you have the Oboringulogo, you have the Sangana, you have Minibie, Buama. All these hover around within the Ikpitibo. So, but all of them, their advent all started from Oginibiri. So before they now went on to establish all these areas. In fact, by the time the white man visits, the white man came into contact, during the slave era. And because they were doing the slave era, they came into all these coastal lines and see where possible they can have that business with the black, where they want to sell the black. In fact, this becomes so popular after the discovery of where they're known as the New World. And the New World is the discovery of America by Christopher Columbus. And so when that area was created or discovered, the manpower needed to do plantations in those areas becomes so high. And that metamorphosed to the increase of slavery in the West African sub-region or in the African country. And so that slave that metamorphosed to is what they sometimes refer to as the transatlantic slave trade or triangular slave trade. When someone tells you that this is a triangular slave trade, it's the same thing as transatlantic slave trade. Triangle in nature because they come to Africa, they will buy the people and go to Europe. And then from Europe, they will cross, to the New World. And then from the New World, they'll come back again. So you see the three cardinal movements, and hence it's called the triangular slave trade. You know, during that time of the slave trade was when Akassa became so prominent in the history. Why they are so prominent in the history was because Akassa happened to be one of the hubs where is accessible to the international communities, and hence they make there as a seaport where they export the slaves and all that. In fact, as a matter of fact, sometimes you begin to talk about history of Badagry. Badagry history is not complete without talking about Akassa history, because the white man was first in contact with Akassa first before going to those Badagris and so on and so forth. But today, because of the preservation of history, because of preservation of documents, because of the preservation of the archives and so on and so forth, most people always remember only Badagry history as something. Because even if you go through the archives and so on and so forth, is where you see a lot of activities, a lot of things that the white man has done, and those things are still there. So, but again, like as I was saying, when they discovered that Akassa land is a place where they can ship in the white men as in slaves, they decided to build the slave warehouses. And I'm sure you've got across the UAC where you see the slave houses. Mind you, they are not well preserved. Unlike the case of Badagry, those monuments are preserved. But in our own case, we are not concerned with preservations of the white men or those historical values. So because we are not concerned with historical value preservation, you see that most of the buildings are, the roof is deroofed, the buildings are cutting away, and so many things are going wrong. Otherwise, those areas are areas where we would have preserved for further studies, people who want to do history, people who want to do diplomacy, and so on and so forth. So it was at that point when that place became a hub as a slave trade route, where a whole lot of activities were being done, and it goes out and comes out and goes in. So that has always been the activities of the Akassa people. In fact, as a matter of fact, our forefathers told us that, look, during that slave trade, you dare not even go walk alone, because for the fear that this man is coming, or maybe they want to kidnap you and then sell you to slavery. So that was the fear that we were having. In fact, that resulted to the fact that a lot of our people become so phobia. So when you tell them to come to school or go to church, they will prefer not to go, because they will be thinking, when we go and gather there, they will come and hold us and then sell us to slavery and all of that. That is the fear that was allayed. And so that has affected our horizon, our thinking in the educational sector. And hence, people are not encouraged to go to school for the fear of the fact that whether they will be incarcerated and all of that. And when they first visited this part of the country, mosquito dealt with them. And when mosquito dealt with them, it caused malaria, and the white man cannot withstand malaria. And so that very first man died, and he was buried. The oldest Portuguese man who was a voyager who died is buried there at the cemetery. And then thereafter, when they came to settle in Akassa, UAC, where a lot of people, for these malarias and other things, start dying, and then that cemetery was used in burying the white men. So the white men's grave is actually there. But some communities will claim that they are the ones that has the white men's grave. So those are just the few highlights about Akassa. So Akassa is not just a nomenclature of something that doesn't exist before. Akassa has been in existence. But one thing people don't understand is that when you say Akassa, is Akassa a village? The answer is absolutely no. Akassa is made up of several communities that made up the Akassa. In fact, far back in 1952, all those intelligence reports in 1936, all those intelligence reports gathered Akassa as one of the clans that are so recognized in the entire country. You have the Okrikas, you have the Akassa people, you have the Ogonis, and so on and so forth. So Akassa of a long has been in existence and is made up of several communities, which of course the Boama, the Apanambie, the Sangana, Minibie, Oginibiri, and so on and so forth, just to mention very few. So that is Akassa for you. We have a history that we have not kept, but Akassa is a place where you reckon with in terms of history on the white men advent of the legitimate trade and the illegitimate trade. The legitimate trade is what I refer to as the trade in palm kernel, and the illegitimate trade is what I refer to as the slave trade. And all these activities were carried out in Akassa even before the white men started reaching out to Badagry and so on and so forth. So Akassa has really played a very pivotal role in Nigerian history. And so unfortunately, because we do not have so-called educated people, educationists, so our archive is empty. Our archive is not well kept. But if you go to the Museum of London, you will see a lot of artifacts that are taken from Akassa. You see a lot of history that is there. It is at London Museum that you can see the real meaning of Akassa. When Akassa started business, when they started interacting with the white men, when the slave trade was on, and so on and so forth. So these are just some of the few things. Again, one of the most key thing again is, I don't know if any of you remembered, when they discovered the River Niger, and they remember the 1885, Berlin Conference. When they discovered the River Niger, a lot of activities happened. And what are the activities? A lot of foreign countries started adventing into the River Niger. And of course, Akassa is situated at the River Non. And the River Non is where you drive into River Niger. So all the activities, the exit point is River Non, and the entry and the exit point is River Non. Before you pass in through all of that, through the River Niger to Onitsha, Kayama, and so on and so forth. First Kayama, so on and so forth, until you get Onitsha. These are historically very viable places. But again, those histories are not complete without you talking about the people called Akassa. And so, just like as I was mentioning, when they started the palm trade, palm kernel, and so on and so forth trade, there was a system they operated, and that system was called the trust system. The trust system is where, in those days slavery, in those days trading is trade by barter. I get what I have to give you, and then you give me what you have. So that was the system of trade. It's not necessarily monetary per se at that time. So our people sell, our palm kernels, our palm fruits, our palm oil to the white men, and the white men will in turn give us gunpowder, gin, carbs, and probably clothes. So those were the things that was happening. But at a point something happened. The white men would drop their jerry can, hoping that the people that will be going to the hinterland and bring the goods to them will put them in the jerry can, and when they come, they'll just pick the jerry can up and then go with their products. This happened over time, but again, when the white man would take those jerry cans to their place, and when they pour out the product inside of the jerry can, it was discovered that half of it is water. So our people get sense since then. Half of it is water, and half of it is filled with the oil. And of course, oil and water, Water is lighter than oil, so the oil will always float. So when they open it, the oil is, this is very good, it's a good product. This is very good, we like it. And then you change all the gunpowders and all the needed things and all of that, and that happens. So when it was discovered that, the process at which I drop the jerry can, when I come back, you have filled the jerry can with the palm product, and I will come and pick up the palm product, is what the Uibo man called the trust system. So again, the trust system collapsed because they discovered that half of the product in the jerry can is water. And hence they now formed the court, an established court, which is what the court of equity. If you go to Akassa, you have a kotikiri. Kotikiri means a place where they build court. So that court of equity was built in Kotikiri. And that was among one of the first courts that was built across the West Africa. It was built in Kotikiri to try the offenders of those people who has breached the trust system. And so the court is called Court of Equity. So these are just symbolic things that happened in Akassa. This shows to you that Akassa is not just a place where people can assume anything or anything. Remember that, some time ago, Oba Ovrawen in Benin Empire, you remember when he was celebrating, and then at the epic of his celebration, the white men wanted to visit him, and he said, please don't come. I'm doing some festival in my community, so don't come. The white men, they have powers. They still said no, they will visit him. So when they visited him, Oba Ovrawen and all the people that were celebrating decided to kill all the people that came at that time. So when they came there to kill everybody, it was at that point that the white men realized that, look, something has happened. And then they now retaliated by using all these Maxim. There is a gun they call Maxim. They used those Maxims and all of that, and then invaded Benin. And that is why you hear Benin massacre. When those things happened, some of those people who ran away ran to Akassa to tell you that Akassa has been in existence. Some of them came to shelter in Akassa. But people will not tell you all these things. They came and have shelter in Akassa because when the white men invaded them, they massacred and sent Oba Ovrawen to exile. And the reign of Oba Ovrawen, that's to tell you that Akassa has been in a very long existence before now. But if people ran away from there and getting shelter in Akassa, that speaks volume of the activities that happen.